Hi guys, welcome back to Tabletop Chats. For those of you who do not know, my name is Tumilweto. I am a property analyst here at Vantage Properties, and welcome guys, welcome to Tabletop Chats once more. Please do like and subscribe, share this video, click the notification bell so that you are notified each and every time we upload a new video. So what is the topic for today, you may ask? We're talking all things land. How much is land? Where can I actually find land? And is it really ideal for me to just randomly buy land? On today's episode, we're simply going to be talking about all these things. So let's jump right into it. Right, so I'm going to talk about the types of tenures first, simply because they do in a way affect land prices in general. We've seen land prices increase over the years, and a lot of you are probably wondering, why is it that in Gabs we have land going for 500,000 for 300 square meters when you can get land for 900 square meters in Medzimotlabe, when actually Medzimotlabe is not that far off from Gabs. So I'll start first with the tenures, the types of land tenures. I know that most of us actually know about the different types of tenures, but it wouldn't hurt to just give a little bit of background. So firstly, we have three types of tenures in Botswana. That's statehold, freehold, and tribal land, right? So state land is basically land that is owned by the government. It is normally allocated by town and city councils. It's land that you find in your urban areas most of the time. So state land can also include your parks, your forest reserves, your, I don't know, just land that is owned by the government, right? So normally with state land, especially in towns and cities, when it's residential or commercial and industrial, it's under a leasehold. What is a leasehold? It's basically a lease agreement between you, the owner of the land, and the government. So a leasehold for residential is normally 99 years, and a leasehold for commercial and industrial is normally 50 years. And this is standard for all urban areas. There's no difference in each urban area. It's 99 years for residential, 50 years for commercial. It is allocated to citizens for residential purposes, and it's also registered. Another thing, it's also registered at the deeds registry. So it's basically land that is registered. You actually get a title deed for that kind of land. And then the next type of land we have is the freehold. This is normally your Pakalani, your G North, your Notwane farms. You know, those areas are normally freehold. And freehold is basically ownership that is perpetual. It is not limited to, freehold land is perpetual, firstly. That means there's no time period of a lapse. So unlike with the leasehold, where leasehold is a period where it ends, the lease ends, and then you have to decide if you're going to extend, or the lease ends there and you have to move, yada yada yada. Freehold land is perpetual, it's forever. And then the other thing is tribal land. Now with tribal land, we have two types of grants under it. We have the customary land grant, and then we have the common law leases. So the customary land grant is the most popular one. It's ultimately the one where you get a certificate after you get allocated your land and whatever. So you get a certificate for that kind of land. And with the common lease, it's just like the leasehold that's under state land. So with the certificate, the only thing is that you are given permission to use the land, but you don't actually own it. The government still reserves the rights of ownership, right? So it means that the government can come at any time and say, yo, we want our land back, we want to use it for something else. That's why we see a lot of compulsory acquisition in tribal land areas. But with the common law lease, it gives you some sort of security. Your lease is like 99 years, so until it lapses, chances of someone coming and say, hey, can I have the land back, are quite slim. And understand the reason why I'm saying that quite slim is because no one actually owns land. The land is owned by the government. You just have rights to the land. You own the rights to the land. I hope you understand what I'm talking about. So basically, no one owns land. You just have rights to own that land. And then the next thing that I want us to talk about now is what actually determines the ownership rights. Like, not the ownership right, what actually determines the price of land. Like, a lot of people would ask, how much is land going for these days? How much can I buy land? I bought land go Francis Taoni, and I want to buy land in Gabs, but I'm noticing that land in Gabs is far much more expensive than it is in Francistown. Well, land has different rates, firstly, in different locations. So let's take Gabs for instance. Land in Gabs would cost maybe 1.5 in a prime area on average, and then in a not so prime area you'd find it for 850. When you go outside of Gabs, you could find land for 250 pula, you can find it for 270 depending on where you are. And then when you go far off, you can find land for as little as 30 pula per square meter. These are square meters, by the way, per square meter, by the way, not the lump sum. So per square meter you'd find that the land rate is 30 pula, but when you come closer to Gabs, it's 250, 270. Your Odi could be 150, your Metsimotlabe, your Mopani could be 270, 250 per square meter. So ideally land has different land values depending on the location, depending on the physical attributes of that land. By physical attributes, I'm talking about topography. Topography as in, are there rocks in that area? Is it on top of a hill? Is it slope? Is it steep? And so forth. So with topography, the reason is because topography directly affects the construction costs of a particular development, and as a result, these construction costs will affect the development costs. So if the topography has rocks or is on top of a hill, that means you're going to spend more on the construction costs, and land in those areas is not in demand as much simply because people are afraid of the construction costs, so they would be lower. And then the type of soil, clay soil, normally would lead to cracks if there's too much clay in that area. So it's very important to take into consideration such things. These are things that people take into consideration when they give land values. Another thing that affects land prices, or land value rather, is the location. So location, we're basically talking about the proximity to roads, to facilities such as your hospitals, your economic activities, the kind of infrastructure or the level of infrastructure in that particular area. For instance, let's take Gabs. The reason why Gabs would have a higher land value is simply because it's closer to amenities. Accessibility to amenities is quite flexible, it's quite great. So that's why you'd find that property prices in that area are expensive. And then when you look at proximity to the CBD area, the closer to the CBD area, the much more expensive it is. And then you have your prime areas as well. These are areas that are your suburbs, areas that are deemed to be of a particular standing, so those would also be expensive because of where they are. And then with location as well, like I said, it's about the level of infrastructure, the intensiveness of the economic activities that are occurring in that area, and also the transport in that area, accessibility to transport, public transport, traffic congestion in that particular area. And also another thing that also affects land value is the highest and best use. So land generally will differ according to commercial, residential, industrial, retail, office space, and all of that good stuff. So a residential property will not cost, residential land that is zoned for residential purposes, right, is suitable. The highest and best use is a residential. And then land that is zoned for commercial purposes, highest and best use would be commercial. So highest and best use, which produces the highest net return in a particular period or over a particular term, can also affect the value of the land. So if we have a residential site and a commercial site, and the highest and best use in that area is commercial, and it's likely to give us a higher return, then the commercial would cost far much more than the residential would, essentially. So residential land values and commercial land values do count, looking at the highest and best use. And then the other thing is demand, the demand for land. So these are the demographic changes. This is basically the demographic changes that are occurring in that particular area, the increase in the population, and anything that's tradable and available in plenty possesses less value, right? Literally, this is how demand works. We all know if something is excessively available, will cost you far much less than if something is scarce, you know. So that's the thing with demand. So if, for instance, in the Gaborone area, land is said to be scarce, so land is far much more expensive because there's so much demand and there's no supply of land. And it's very important to understand that with land, you cannot simply bring in more land to alleviate the supply or to increase the supply. You can bring in more land to increase the supply. If it's 50,000 hectares, it's 50,000 hectares, and that is it. You can't bring in more land to increase the supply. The best thing that you can do is utilize the land that you have in a much more effective and efficient way. That's why now we have high-rise buildings, and people are now starting to build up instead of in long ways or whatever. So it's advisable that you find land in areas that are just find land anywhere around the city so that you can maximize the demand. You may not be able to find land in the city, but you can surely find land outside the city. And then the other thing is that the anticipation, the present and future use, and the anticipation of high yields in future. So there was this thing happening, or there is this thing that Palape is about to boom and all that. And what we are seeing a lot of is that now people are buying into Palape and increasing the demand, therefore increasing the land prices of Palape. or this could be in any area. If there's the anticipated yields are high, the anticipated yield is higher, it may induce a false scarcity in people's minds, and then people may run to buy that land. And this is not the most effective way of doing things. It may be risky in certain cases because you don't necessarily know, and this is where we come in as Vantage Properties. We don't advise that anyone buys land without actually looking into the risks, studying the market, and we do that here for you. We study the market, we find out what is actually happening in the market and how we can help you mitigate risk. Is it actually viable for you to buy in Palape, or it's just a false scarcity that is being put in place, and land prices will eventually fall in future and we'll be like, hey, now you can go buy land in Palape? So essentially all I'm trying to say, guys, is land is available anywhere and you can buy land anywhere. Just make sure that you're making the right decision based on the different factors. Is the land that you're buying worth it? Based on the different factors: the demand, the location, the scarcity, the future and present use, the anticipation of yields. Is it really worth the value that you want to purchase it at? And that is it from me, ladies and gentlemen. Please do have yourself a good day, and do like and subscribe to our YouTube platform and also our social media platforms. Until next week, goodbye, guys.